describe the nature of these quadratic equations by analyzing what's called the discriminant. Now the discriminant is going to be equal to b squared minus 4ac. If you're familiar with the quadratic formula, this is the junk that's under the square root. The stuff that's under the square root tells you, since you're taking its square root, whether you have any solutions, whether you have one solution, or whether you have no solutions. In particular, since it's under the square root, that means that if d happens to be less than 0, you have 0 or no real solutions. If d happens to be equal to 0, then you will have the square root of 0, which is only 0, and that means you'll have one real solution. Finally, if d happens to be bigger than 0, then the quadratic formula would have you plus or minus some real number. So here you will get two solutions. And so you'll either have 0, 1, or 2 solutions depending on the discriminant. So in this first example, 2x squared minus 3x minus 1, d would be equal to b squared minus 4 times a times c. That's equal to 9 minus 4 times 2 is 8 times negative 1 is negative 8, and 9 minus negative 8 is equal to 17. Therefore, since 17 is bigger than 0, we have two real solutions. If you're expected to do more than that, it turns out these two solutions are going to be irrational because the square root of 17 is not a rational number. But that's a little bit beyond what I'm hoping to do with this video, but since you cannot take the square root of 17 to get a rational number, that means that these two solutions will actually be irrational. For the next example, let's do the same thing. B squared, b is the number in front of x, so we get 4 squared minus 4 times a times c. So b squared minus 4 times a times c. 4 squared is 16. 4 times 5 times 1 is 20. And what's 16 minus 20 but negative 4? So negative 4 is less than 0. We can't take a square root except in the complex numbers, so there will be no real solutions to this particular quadratic equation. So why don't you try one on your own? Consider the polynomial, the quadratic equation of 4x squared plus 4x plus 1. Try pausing the video, seeing if you can calculate your discriminant and figure out what the nature of these roots are. So, assuming you gave it a shot here, d is equal to b, the number in front of x, which is 4 squared, subtracted by 4 times a times c. Again, a is the number in the front and c is the number at the back. 4 squared is 16. 4 times 4 times 1 is also 16. And 16 minus 16 is 0. So whereas the other two had the two cases, this is the case of equaling 0. When you're equaling 0, that means that you have exactly one real solution to that particular quadratic equation.